Welcome to this edition of Nurturing Wellbeing with Kurt Kelly. I am Kurt Kelly, and this week I'm excited about having Representative Rick Roth. He is the Vice Chair of Children, Families, and Seniors in the Florida House of Representatives. He is quite a child advocate, and we're looking forward to spending some time with him. So let's hear from Representative Rick Roth. I am pleased to have with me Representative Rick Roth. He is from District 85 in the Palm Beach County area. And we were catching up with some of my experience from living down there years ago. And we're very pleased to have him. But I have to tell you, and I'll start with this. The committee that he is the vice chair of this Children, Families, and Seniors, I believe has been a really strong committee this year. I heard Representative and Chair Altman talk about how pleased he was with all of the work that this committee has done, and I echo that. Representative Roth, welcome. We're glad to have you here. I'm looking forward to this interview. And thank you for dropping everything and coming over. I know you've got to spend some time today on the House floor when working with the legislature.
Yes, sir.
So when people begin to decide they want to step into the political world, they move from the private life and all the business and everything you're doing to now stepping in and being a public service. Tell me your story. What moved you to do that?
Well, two things. One, as a business owner and a farmer, and I farm in the greatest place in the world, Palm Beach County. I tell people when they come to Palm Beach County, welcome to paradise. We have some of the best weather. We farm year round. And so agriculture I've always been a grassroots activist for agriculture. So I've been coming to Tallahassee and Washington, D.C. for 40 years with organizations like Farm Bureau, Florida Fruit and Vegetable Association. Good. So every time there's an opportunity for me to go to Washington, D.C., and it's a business trip, somebody else pays for it, I'm ready to go. So I've done that for many, many years. I've raised money for a lot of candidates. I raised $5,000, $5,100 checks for Bob Martinez back in the 80s, and got to be in the inside baseball group with Ben Hill Griffin III and Joe Marlin Hilliard. And here I am, this little young 30-year-old kid.
Well, you're throwing out some big names there.
You know, so in agriculture, I was hanging out with some of the big arm twisters. I've never been a big arm twister, but I've been raising money for 35 years, and I feel like I was actually called to run. I just felt like the country was really going in the wrong direction. I actually decided that I wanted to run for Congress. I interviewed 3 consultants, and the one that was given me by someone I really respected, Anita Mitchell, gave me the name of Rocky Pennington. And Rocky's been around a long time, and he agreed to run my campaign. And what's so odd about that story is he's obviously in Tallahassee, and I was running for Congress. So it seemed like a mixed match, but by the grace of God, Pat Rooney did not run for his 4th term, and I was running for Congress in a very, very brief amount of time against Brian Mast. Brian Mast had Northern Palm Beach County, Martin, and St. Lucie. He did get elected in 2016. I was able to move over and run for Pat Rooney's open seat because he surprised everybody. So it was a God thing. I really was blessed that I had that opportunity, because I would have failed miserably running for Congress.
So, I ran for Congress as well. I left the Florida House and ran for Congress. You're a smarter man than I was getting out of that. That's a challenge, and it's a different world. Mm-hmm. I really love the Florida House. I found that we built great relationships across the aisle. The animus wasn't at nearly what they see in Washington, D.C. And
it's starting to get there, though.
I've noticed that over the last couple of years, and I'm disappointed in that. I'm going to rely on people like you to try to bring it back to we have differences of opinions and values, but we all come together on the right issues. In our interviewing here, both Republican, Democrats, we hear that. And so again, and I saw that in your committee this year. You guys were very affable and working together. I was very pleased with that. So I'm excited that you decided to step in and get into this public life. As an old farm boy myself, not from Palm Beach County, but from Ocala area.
Okay. Horse country.
Yeah, we have a lot of horses up there. We had a lot of cattle up there too. I really appreciate it, and I think that you bring a real sense of passion and concern for your community, but also for the families that you serve in that community. So at much of the things that you worked on this year, and by the way, maybe this year more than any year since I've been here at the Coalition, we had more legislation that was being looked at in the children and families arena. A lot of it driven by the Senate, and I thought that the House took a very measured approach to a lot of this, and I appreciate that. You guys had to address that. Just give me sort of your sense of maybe some key legislation that you felt was important that you would, and I know as you were vice chair that you were involved in all of the decisioning process. Just tell me a little bit about what you felt was some important legislation, and then maybe some things we need to be looking for in the future.
I've been focused mainly on the bills that I've been trying to run. And I decided at the very beginning in 2017 that my first priority was going to be adoption. And what was nice about that is that it helped me to build a stronger relationship with Representative Ben Albritton. Also agriculture, but also he's got a big heart for adoption and for children. Man. So it really started some good relationships for me. I live in a district, northeast Palm Beach County, where agriculture is not that big. Palm Beach County as a whole is a huge agricultural county. Matter of fact, I tell people we're the largest ag county east of California. Right. The top 5 counties in agriculture are all in California. Palm Beach County is number 6, and that's a big deal. So we don't have a lot of agriculture in my district, so I wanted to pick some issues that are bipartisan issues. I'm in a district that's very narrowly Republican. Palm Beach County leans a little bit to the left, partly because there's a lot of money, so it's a little bit more liberal. But the good news is we get along real well with all our representatives and state senators and everything. And so I wanted to pick some bipartisan issues. So my key issues have been primarily adoption. This year I got a bill called Adoption Proceedings, and it's going to lower the cost for people doing adoptions. One of the real problems we have with adoptions is you have times when a mom terminates her parental rights, and the child is now being cared for by a foster family, right. Foster parents. And then as you go towards that adoption a year or two down the road, sometimes you'll have a relative step up and say, hey, wait a minute, I want to do the adoption. Right. And so now you have two people vying for the adoption of that child. And what this bill does, 601, it brings all that court activity into one chapter, into chapter 39. Right now it's in 39, and then if you want to contest an adoption, you have to go to 120, which is administrative procedures. That's correct. So what this bill does, and this is something that DCF came to me with and said, would you run this bill? This is a good bill. It'll speed up the process. It takes years for some of these adoptions to take place. And the child is like 2, 3, 4 years old, and it's really very, very important. As a farmer, I understand it maybe better than most people. I don't raise cattle. I don't have animals. But in agriculture, everybody knows there's no making up for lost time. If you get behind the curve on taking care of animals, taking care of crops, taking care of children, you never can make it up. So the earlier you can get that permanency and get that adoption, the better it is for that child.
So you have just articulated well the complications in this arena, and you get a lot of different players that can come in at one time and so forth. Our interest should always be to make sure that we're doing the right thing for that child. Mm-hmm. And that's an easy thing to say, but it gets complicated with all the legal and all of the statutes and so forth. I appreciate you taking on an issue like that. Let me give you some information. 20 years ago in Florida, our system of care was considered one of the worst in America. We were not considered good. We had a lot of problems, and a bipartisan effort. Really a strong effort. It was actually started by Lawton Childs and Buddy McKay. Buddy McKay's from Ocala. And Buddy said there's got to be a better way of doing this. And then Jeb Bush came in, and Jeb says, there is a better way of doing it, and they started working together, and they put this community-based care together. Back
So
then,
that was Jeb Bush and Buddy McKay?
Yep.
You know, there's a joke about that.
No.
You know that Florida's not really an urban state when you have leaders like Jeb and Buddy.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like it, doesn't it? Exactly. Yeah. And both of them had a real passion. I know that's probably different in a lot of areas on other policies, but in child welfare they came together. That's really the great thing that we work on. We can come together in this area. But here was one of the good news. The good news was back then we did about 1,300 adoptions a year statewide. Back then, this year we're teetering on 5,000. So that's a positive thing, both for community-based care and by the way, I call this nurturing well-being, this segment that we do here, because nurturing means that we're trying to develop it. It's really a team approach. Now, I have lead agencies, 18 of them across the state. They contract with providers. They go out and work with all these foster families. But part of the team also has to be the Department of Children and Families. And so we work very closely with them. Sometimes we have differences, and we should have differences. They're big government, and we're not-for-profit organizations all over the state, but we do better when we work together. If that third leg of the stool, when it all comes together, is when we get the legislature fully engaged. And when we're bifurcated and separated, it's not a good thing. And that's why I'm actually extraordinarily optimistic. I love the fact that we've got senators that are like Ben Albritton, who's an awesome man. I love the fact that he's very engaged in this, and affable about hearing how we can do things better. And having Representative Altman, having Representative Williams, your leadership in the House.
Let me tell you, Thad Altman is an awesome representative. I've gotten to know him better this year. We've started a good friendship a couple of years ago. He actually has an agricultural background, so we connected there. I cannot say enough good about Representative Thad Altman.
So there's two things I'm going to say. I say the same thing. I served with him. He's one of those genuine men that just cares about it. And secondly, Representative Altman, you need to give Representative Roth a raise. Not that he has anything to do with it, but let me tell you something. I watched your committee. Every time you guys were on, I'm there. I couldn't be there. Normally, a lot of times I would actually be in the committee room. We couldn't be there this year. I miss that. I miss having that interaction. But I can tell you that I was very pleased with this committee.
This is the one committee that I've been on ever since my sophomore year. So this is my 5th year, so this is my 4th year on this committee, and my 2nd year as vice chair, and this is where my passion really is. My very first meeting with Speaker Corcoran after I got elected, of course I met with him before I won the November election, but meeting with him after I was officially a representative, my very first meeting, I had no idea what I was going to say to him. What was my number one issue? I had no idea. Again, even though I'm a businessman, I'm in agriculture, I wanted to be a little more diverse, and it came out of nowhere. I said I wanted to deal with adoption. So last year on the floor, I ran a bill that helped veterans add them to the list of Florida employees, state of Florida employees, and school teachers that are allowed to submit an application to be subsidized, and we can give them either a $5,000 or $10,000 check. And we spend about $2 million a year on that program. Awesome. Great program to encourage people to adopt children out of our foster care system. And so when I ran the bill last year on the floor, I said, okay, I got to make my statement. So I reminded everybody about the movie Mr. Mom.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, well, you've seen the movie Mr. Mom about the guy that played Batman.
Michael Keaton.
Yep. Was Mr. Mom. I said, well, I just want you to know, with this bill that I'm passing on the floor today, my new name is Mr. Adoption.
Oh, I love it.
So I'm making my stand that I'm going to run adoption bills. We're going to encourage adoptions.
So I now get to call you Mr. Adoption. I'm more than happy to do so. Thank you for that. And quite frankly, in our arena, we think that's an important thing. We deal with a plethora of children and issues and we need real champions. Give me this as we close out. What do you foresee? What's some areas that, we can work with you on and help you in the future? Is there something that you say, okay, Mr. Adoption, is there another area that we need to work with you on? Or is there some other things that you're interested in that we should be preparing together and work with over the summer?
My main focus, as I mentioned to you already, is adoption and making adoption more affordable. To me, it's still a very expensive process. We really have got to figure out a way for the state of Florida to really encourage adoptions. There really needs to be more money put into helping people adopt children. We get them out of the foster care system. We have good organizations down in Palm Beach County. We have Place of Hope, which is a great organization.
Charles Bender, our good friend.
And this idea of, Charles Bender is a good friend of mine. Yep. It's amazing. He is the original president. He's been there like 15 years. And my daughter actually worked for him for a little period of time. But the bottom line is this idea of having philanthropic and community-based and state all working together to make it happen. That's really the answer.
Well, that was Jeb's idea of saying, that's why we don't want it just one size fits all big government. We want to make sure we bring the philanthropic, bring the community, get the community, get business folks in the community, boards made up of business folks.
Right.
And it is why we've gone to one of the top in the nation. Now, let me also say, I'll close with the top in the nation. That's not good enough. We're not good enough.
No, it's never good enough.
We're going to get better. We're going to continue to grow. I am proud of the folks that engage this. This is a tough arena. When you address these issues, there are tough jobs to address.
Well, one thing I learned from Speaker Corcoran, and I like telling people that he was my first speaker, and being in the legislature with Speaker Corcoran was like being in General Patton's tank division. And he said, you're supposed to hold your position.
Yeah, exactly.
He says, no, we're not holding our position, we're moving forward.
Exactly.
And you knew exactly what your position is. And I've learned watching good speakers that the goal of good government and good legislature is truly to reform government to make it more transparent. The secret really is from the very beginning of the process is just be open-minded.
Right.
Listen. And they encourage you to switch committees and find out what your real passion is. And I did that with children, families, and seniors. But the other thing is I've also taken on other projects, and you say, okay, I'm going to work in this arena over here. I'm going to work in this arena over there. You build relationships. You build relationships with lobbyists. You build relationships with agencies. And so that's what you have to do is you have to focus. And here's the beautiful part about it. Every legislator is different. Take pride in that diversity.
Right. When you take the time and say, listen, I'm going to focus on adoptions, I'm going to focus on children and families, I'm going to focus on building, let's commit, and I'm just going to tell you this, from the Florida Coalition for Children, all of the folks, the 18 different lead agencies, the other strong organizations that I have, provider organizations, case management organizations, group homes, all of these folks that are all doing the job, working with the Department of Children and Families and working with the legislature, we can take child welfare to a level that, quite frankly, and I hope you feel the same way, we said nurturing well-being. The right thing is we would like to work it so that children don't even come into our system. Now, we know there's always going to be something we're going to have to provide for that. But we would like to do more to get upstream. And that's where I'm excited about working with the legislature over the next couple of years. They'll need to listen to we're the folks on the ground. We're the troops. We know what's going on. And that's why it's always important. So to have a man like you who has a heart for this, but is open to hearing all of the sides of it is really critical.
I tell people I'm not a politician, I'm a representative. But the secret to being a good representative is I use my heart, my head, and my conscience. And if I allow my conscience to do its work, and I keep that conscience clear through forgiveness and asking for forgiveness and other things, if I keep my mind clear and focused on what the real truth is. And you have to remember, truth is just your idea of what's really going on around you. And it's something we always have to struggle with. But if you're focusing on truth and then you're taking that, what you think is really going on, and you focus more on policy. Yeah, you need a little bit of politics, you need a little bit of compromise, you need a little bit of negotiation to get it done. But if what you're doing is 80% policy and 20% politics, it'll work. If it's 80% politics, it will fail. So that's my argument. I'm not a politician, I'm a representative.
You're doing a great job as representing District 85, but also representing the citizens of Florida. And I want to thank you for your time, and I want to thank you for just your compassion and your heart toward this arena. This has been another edition of Nurturing Wellbeing. Thanks for joining us. We hope that you enjoy it and that you continue to stay tuned as we nurture well-being.